A German Shepherd was found on an abandoned property. So traumatized, he wouldn't let anyone near. For months, he cowered in the farthest corner of his kennel, trembling as potential adopters passed him by. But everything changed the day one unexpected visitor arrived at the shelter. What happened next defied everything the staff believed was possible. This is a true story that may forever reshape how you see the bond between humans and dogs. In July 2021, Riverside County Animal Z shelter in California was stretched beyond capacity. The nationwide wave of pandemic pet surrenders had overwhelmed the facility. For shelter director Marlene Gutierrez, a 20-year veteran in animal welfare, the arrival of yet another rescue felt like just one more crisis in a relentless day. "We have absolutely no space," she told Animal Control Officer Luis Vasquez as he carried in a crate. "There are already 15 dogs on this week's euthanasia list." Luis shook his head grimly. "You're going to want to make room for this one, Marlene. Foreclosure in Indio. Looks like the owner walked away months ago." Inside the crate was a severely emaciated German Shepherd, around 3 years old. He had survived on stagnant hose water and scraps in the overgrown yard he'd been left to fend for himself in. His collar had embedded into his neck, requiring emergency surgery. Dr. Caitlin Chen, the shelter's lead veterinarian, documented a devastating list of medical issues: advanced malnutrition with a body score of 2 out of 9, dehydration requiring IV fluids, infected wounds, hookworms, ear infections, and pressure sores. "Physically, we can treat him," she told Marlene, after his initial care. "But psychologically, I'm worried. He's in full shutdown mode. Unlike many rescues who still crave human contact, this shepherd, nicknamed Shadow by the medical staff, displayed deep fear of people. When approached, he pressed himself into the farthest corner of his kennel, trembling violently. He avoided all eye contact, refused food if anyone was nearby, and reacted to a leash as if it were a threat. "He's completely shut down," said behavioral specialist Kelsey Martinez after several unsuccessful attempts to connect. For 2 weeks, the team saw almost no progress. Shadow would only eat when the kennel was empty. Security footage showed he moved only at night, pacing in tight circles when the shelter was quiet. "We're running out of options," Marlene said at an early August staff meeting. "If we can't find a rescue by Friday, we may have no choice." That Thursday afternoon, just 1 day before the deadline, Kelsey made a final effort. Instead of approaching the kennel, she sat quietly on the floor across the corridor, reading aloud from a novel, her back to Shadow. She didn't look at him. She simply stayed. An hour later, as she stood to leave, something shifted. Shadow was still in his corner, but his eyes were following her. For the first time, he made eye contact. "I need 48 more hours," Kelsey told Marlene, urgent. "There's still someone in there." Marlene agreed, though neither could have predicted what would happen next. Claire Winslow had no intention of adopting a dog when she stopped by the shelter Friday morning. At 34, her job as a physical therapist at Eisenhower Medical Center kept her busy. Her recent divorce had left her adjusting to life alone in a rental cottage in Palm Desert. "I'm just dropping off some towels and blankets," she told the front desk volunteer. "My mom used to volunteer here." Mike Russell, the weekend supervisor, overheard. "Thanks for the donation. Want a quick tour? We've upgraded quite a bit since your mom's day." Claire hesitated, then nodded. "Sure, I've got a few minutes." They walked through the cheerful adoption wing. Puppies wagged excitedly. Adult dogs pressed up against their kennels. Claire smiled at them all, but none sparked a connection. "That's most of our adoption-ready group," Mike said as they neared the end of the corridor. "Back there's mostly medical and behavioral cases, not adoptable yet." "Can we look anyway?" Claire asked. "My mom always rooted for the tough cases," Mike agreed, cautioning her to stay clear of kennel doors. They walked past recovering surgery patients, heartworm treatments, and underweight puppies. Then they reached Shadow's kennel. "This guy's our most difficult case," Mike said. "German Shepherd, around 3, found abandoned. He's been here almost 3 weeks, still won't leave the corner." We're hoping a rescue can take him. Claire stopped. Something about the figure huddled in the shadows pulled her in. She could just make out his amber eyes watching them. What happened to him? Don't know the details, but judging by his behavior, long-term neglect, isolation, maybe worse. No aggression, just fear, total withdrawal. Without a word, Claire sat cross-legged on the floor across from the kennel, back to the wall, unknowingly mirroring Kelsey's posture from the day before. "What are you doing?" Mike asked. "I'm not sure," she said. "Just giving him space. Being here. I need to check meds," Mike said. "I'll be back in 15. Claire nodded. She sat quietly, occasionally glancing at her phone, but mostly just existing in calm silence. 10 minutes passed. Shadow didn't move, but his eyes never left her. Then he shifted, just slightly, a small, cautious relaxation in his posture. When Mike returned, Claire was still sitting. "Any change?" he whispered. "Not really," she said, "but I'd like to come back tomorrow." Mike looked skeptical. "These cases take months." "No," Claire said, standing slowly, "but I can't stop thinking about him." As she turned to go, she glanced back. Shadow had moved just a little closer and was still watching her. There was something in his gaze, something she couldn't explain. Claire returned the next morning, this time prepared, a folding chair, a book, and a Bluetooth speaker playing, soft classical music, tools she sometimes used with her most anxious patients. "I wasn't sure you'd really come back," said Kelsey, meeting her at the desk. Mike had filled in the team. "Neither was I," Claire admitted, "but I couldn't stop thinking about him." They walked to Shadow's kennel. The shepherd was in his usual spot, but his ears perked up at the sound of her voice. "That's new," Kelsey noted. "He recognizes you." Claire set up her chair 6 feet from the kennel, angled, not facing directly. She placed the speaker nearby, volume low. "Mind if I just sit?" "Go ahead," Kelsey said. "I'll check in now and then. No sudden moves, no direct eye contact, and don't enter the kennel." For 3 hours, Claire stayed, sometimes reading aloud in a soft voice, sometimes typing quietly on her laptop. All the while, she pretended to ignore Shadow, but was always aware. At noon, Kelsey returned with a sandwich. "Any changes?" Claire nodded. "He moved to the middle of the kennel an hour ago, watches me, retreats when others walk by, but he's closer." Kelsey peeked in. Shadow was indeed near the front, watching Claire with cautious, quiet curiosity, and for the first time he didn't return to the corner. She had never seen him choose to be so close before. "That's incredible progress," Kelsey said, doing her best to temper her professional optimism. After Kelsey left, Claire remained in place, continuing to offer calm companionship. She began speaking to Shadow in a quiet, conversational tone. Small things, like how her morning had gone, the chapters she'd read, the warm weather outside. She avoided direct eye contact, instead letting him simply grow used to the sound of her voice. The turning point came just after 2 p.m. Claire had been silently reading for nearly half an hour when she caught a movement from the corner of her boudoir. Glancing carefully with peripheral vision, she saw Shadow had stepped forward. He wasn't pressed into his usual corner. Instead, he stood just short of the kennel's front, watching her with a gaze that felt focused, curious even, more than fearful. Moving with deliberate slowness, Claire inched her chair a little closer. Shadow didn't retreat. She resumed reading aloud, her voice low and even. When Marlene came to check in, she froze several feet away, astonished by what she saw. "I've never seen him leave his corner like that," she murmured to Kelsey, who had just joined her. "What did she do?" "Nothing," Kelsey replied. "That's what's so powerful. She's just there. No pressure, no expectations." Before leaving, Claire asked if she could return again the following day. Marlene didn't hesitate. "Yes, absolutely. I'm changing his status in the system now. No final decisions until we see where this leads." As Claire gathered her things, Shadow slipped back to his corner. But there was a new quality to his retreat. It lacked panic. It felt like a choice, not an instinct. Their eyes met for just a second as she stood. "See you tomorrow," she said softly. What no one yet understood was that Shadow's response to Claire wasn't random. There was something about her presence, something unique, that had begun to reach him. And soon, the reason would become astonishingly clear. Over the next 2 weeks, Claire returned daily, shifting her schedule so she could spend at least 2 hours each visit. Shadow's transformation came in gradual but meaningful steps. By the 7th day, he approached the kennel. Door as soon as Claire entered the building. If anyone else neared, he would quickly retreat. But with her, his body stayed loose, ears forward. "I've never seen a dog this shut down connect so fast," Kelsey said one afternoon, reviewing overnight footage. "Especially not like this. He acts like he's known her for years." Claire couldn't explain it. "It sounds crazy, but it feels familiar, like we've met before, like he remembers me." By day 10, Shadow was taking treats directly from Claire's hand through the bars. Marlene watched the scene unfold with misty eyes. "It's time to start thinking next steps," she said gently. "Would you consider fostering?" Claire hesitated. "I rent, and my lease doesn't allow pets. But I am looking for a new place, somewhere with a yard, maybe. If I find the right setup, I'd consider it. I really would." That afternoon, while sitting outside Shadow's kennel, Claire received an unexpected call. A colleague at Eisenhower Medical Center had a lead. Dr. Nathan Wells, a neurologist, was looking for a physical therapist for a new home-based case, a veteran with PTSD and a traumatic brain injury. "He won't come to the clinic," her colleague explained. "The VA's approved in-home sessions 3 times a week. Are you available?" Claire agreed to meet the patient the next morning, scheduling the visit early enough to still make time with Shadow afterward. She arrived at a modest home in La Quinta, where a VA social worker met her at the door. "Just a heads up," the woman said. "Captain Jordan's been through a lot. IED blast in Afghanistan 3 years ago. Physically he's doing well, but the PTSD is severe. He avoids nearly all contact." Claire nodded. She was no stranger to trauma. She'd seen it before, during her time at the VA in San Diego. Inside, a man in his 30s sat by the window in a wheelchair, broad-shouldered but tense. He glanced up as they entered. "Captain Jordan, this is Claire Winslow. She's the PT Dr. Wells referred." Claire stepped forward slowly. "Good morning, Captain. It's good to meet you." He studied her for a long moment, then, to the social worker's surprise, he spoke. "Do I know you?" "I don't think so," Claire replied, setting down her therapy bag. "I moved here recently." The session went smoothly. Jordan remained guarded but compliant, following instructions and responding more than expected. Afterward, the social worker pulled Claire aside. "That was different. He's never engaged like that." Later that day, Claire returned to the shelter still wearing the same clothes from the morning visit. Shadow was especially focused, sniffing her jeans, the soles of her shoes, even the hem of her jacket. His interest was unusually intense, and "He ever had any history with military personnel?" she asked Kelsey. Kelsey looked puzzled. "We don't know anything about his background." "Why?" Claire didn't answer at first. She simply kept watching Shadow, who continued to inspect her, sent with what looked like recognition. 2 days later, Claire arrived for her second visit with Captain Jordan. As she approached the house, she heard barking. Wild, desperate barking coming from inside. The social worker met her at the door, flustered. "Bad night. Nightmares. He said something about a dog, one he worked with in Afghanistan. It sounds like losing that dog was the trigger." Claire felt a jolt of adrenaline. "Did he say what kind of dog?" "German Shepherd. Named Shadow." Her breath caught. She could barely concentrate during the therapy session, her mind racing. The name, the behavior, the connection. Could it be the same dog? At the end of the session, she asked softly, "Your dog in Afghanistan. What happened to him?" Jordan's expression darkened. "His name was Shadow. He was a military working dog. Explosives detection. We were paired for 2 years. After the blast, I was medevaced. They told me he ran off, likely disoriented. He was never recovered. He paused. I begged them to let me stay and look for him, but I was too injured. What did he look like? Black and tan, big, had a scar on his right shoulder from a mission in Kandahar. He studied her. Why are you asking? Claire hesitated. It's going to sound insane, but I've been spending time with a German shepherd at the county shelter. He's terrified of people. No one can get close except me. She swallowed. He has a scar, right shoulder. Jordan's face went pale. That's not possible. Shadow was in Afghanistan. Military dogs do get repatriated, she said. Some are adopted out, some slip through the cracks. Jordan gripped the arms of his wheelchair. Do you have a picture? Claire pulled out her phone and showed him a few shots. Jordan stared, his hands trembling. I can't be sure. But the markings, the way he stands, there's one way to find out, Claire said gently. Will you come see him? Within an hour, everything was arranged. Marlene had approved a private after-hours visit. The social worker helped. Jordan into Claire's car, folding his wheelchair in the trunk. At the shelter, Kelsey greeted them at the side entrance. I've moved him to the meet and greet room. It's quieter. Just be prepared. If he panics, we'll have to stop. Claire nodded. She wheeled Jordan to the door, then paused. You ready? Jordan took a deep breath. Yes. Kelsey opened the door. Shadow stood at the far end of the room, tense but alert. At first, he didn't notice them. Then Jordan spoke, a single word, sharp and commanding. Attention. Shadow froze. His ears snapped forward. His whole body stiffened as he locked onto Jordan's voice. Shadow, come. The change was electric. In an instant, the dog who had spent weeks cowering and trembling launched across the room. His tail wagged furiously, his ears flattened in joy. He reached Jordan in seconds, whining, licking, trying to climb into his lap. Jordan buried his face in Shadow's fur, shoulders shaking with emotion. I think that answers the question, Kelsey whispered to Claire, both of them in tears. The mystery of how a bomb-sniffing dog from Afghanistan ended up in a California shelter would never be fully unraveled. But through Jordan's contacts and the military K-9 program, they pieced together enough. Shadow had survived the blast. He'd been sent stateside for treatment. Somewhere in the chaos, he was lost in the system, until fate and love brought him home. Force base in Texas. Deemed unfit for continued military service due to signs of trauma, he'd been placed through a private adoption agency specializing in retired military dogs. After that, the trail went cold. Perhaps he passed through several homes. Maybe one couldn't handle his needs. Eventually, he ended up abandoned. But what mattered now was that Shadow, military designation TEH-167, nicknamed by Jordan for his habit of staying close, had found his person again. Their reunion brought its own challenges. Jordan lived alone in a single-story house, still battling his injuries and PTSD. Shadow, though instantly responsive to Jordan, remained wary of strangers and unfamiliar spaces. Both were wounded warriors, each carrying visible and invisible scars. Claire became their bridge. Her physical therapy sessions with Jordan continued, now with Shadow by his side, intuitively knowing which moments Jordan needed encouragement. The same dog who once recoiled from human touch now gently nudged Jordan forward. He's doing what he was trained to do, Claire said one afternoon after a particularly productive session. These dogs are taught to guide and protect. He's remembering who he is. Within a month, Jordan's physical progress was undeniable. Caring for Shadow gave him purpose. He began rising from his wheelchair more often, using only a cane for short walks around the house. Shadow transformed too. His coat regained its shine, his muscles filled in, and his fear began to fade. He remained protective, but no longer paralyzed by anxiety. Kelsey visited regularly, helping guide Shadow through behavioral adjustments. Everything makes sense now, she told Claire. These dogs form unbreakable bonds with their handlers. Being torn apart after trauma, It's not something they just recover from. The shelter formally transferred Shadow's ownership to Jordan through the Pets for Vets program, waiving all associated fees. A local newspaper ran a front-page story on their reunion, sparking a wave of support. A contractor volunteered to fence Jordan's property, and a pet supply store donated lifetime food for Shadow. Claire found herself at Jordan's home more often, not just for therapy, but for shared dinners, quiet movie nights, and long, vulnerable conversations. Slowly, Jordan opened up about his past, the man he used to be, the dreams derailed, the long road back to purpose. Shadow saw something in you, he told her one evening as they sat watching the shepherd patrol the new yard. From that first moment at the shelter, he knew you were safe. Claire smiled. Maybe we all saw something in each other, something that needed healing. 6 months after Shadow and Jordan reunited, Claire arrived for what would be her final, official therapy session. Jordan now walked independently, even jogging short distances with Shadow in the early mornings. Before she could knock, the door swung open. Jordan, standing tall, Shadow at his side. Both looked stronger, more grounded than she ever could have imagined during those early days. "Ready for your final evaluation?" she asked, masking emotion behind a clinical tone. The session was flawless. Jordan surpassed every goal. At the end, he handed her an envelope. "What's this?" Claire asked. "Open it." Inside was a job offer from the VA's new canine therapy program in Palm Desert. They wanted someone to help design protocols integrating service dogs with physical rehab. Someone like Claire, with her unique blend of clinical knowledge and instinct for animals. "I might have mentioned your name," Jordan said, smiling, sheepishly. "They created this position with you in mind." Claire stared at the letter, overwhelmed, a way to unite her skills and her newfound passion. "There's one more thing," Jordan added, his voice quieter. Shadow pressed closer to his side as if sensing the shift. "I've been thinking about what happens next. With us," he said. "Now that you're not officially my therapist anymore, I was hoping maybe you'd consider dinner. No treatment plans. No notebooks." Claire's smile bloomed, eyes shining. "I thought you'd never ask." She stepped forward, closing the space between them. Shadow gave a quiet, approving woof. The dog who once cowered in corners now standing tall between the two people he helped bring together. His handler found against impossible odds, and the woman who led them both back to life. Their story became a cornerstone of the VA's canine therapy program. It was documented in medical journals, featured in a PBS special on trauma recovery, and used in training new therapy teams across the country. Shadow, once considered adoptable, now returned to the shelter regularly with Jordan and Claire, helping socialize dogs with trauma histories. The shepherd who once shut the world out now led others back into it. His journey from battlefield to abandonment to belonging stood as living proof of what reconnection can heal. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button. Like, share, and turn on notifications to help us bring more of these true, powerful stories to light. Because sometimes, the right connection doesn't just heal, it transforms.